Scottie! Newsstand versus Newsletter embarks on a journey of a classic wrestling year. Were the PWI readers accurate with their assessment of talent? Were the Wrestling Observer Newsletter subscribers more right than wrong? Join longtime friends Scottie and Andrew as they talk about Newsstand versus Newsletter.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Newsstand versus Newsletter. I am your host, the future Hall of Famer, Scottie B. I'm bringing in the beast, Andrew. Here he comes. So I hit the wrestling in the background. What you watching in the background there, Andrew?
I'm only focused on Newsstand versus Newsletter. And a reminder, folks, to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit like and leave any comments if you agree or disagree with Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Wrestling Observer Newsletter. In the comments. We always like to read the comments.
What else? What's the contest we have going on?
The contest is as soon as we hit 100 followers, we're going to have a draw out of those first 100 followers, and the winner will win 3 months YouTube premium subscription.
And that's a good time. How are we going to do it? Should I give him a gift card, basically? Buy him a gift card online? We'll just send the code, pretty much.
I don't know how it works.
Yeah, we can just buy a YouTube gift card online. We're not giving out our credit cards. Not that there's anything on it anyway. So, all right. And what's the halftime show for today?
The halftime show is going to be a beauty. And I would like to hear and read everyone else's top 100 Starcade matches of all time, because that's right. In case you didn't read it in the title of this video, we are doing 1983. I'm excited.
Yeah, 1983 is an interesting year because I was a big WWF guy, from watching the tapes of I loved WWF 80, 81, 82. 83 really starts getting rough, man. It's Vince's first year. Everyone thinks 84 was Vince's first year. 83 was his first year as a full year as being head of WWF. Because they start doing the expansion and then they start moving into LA and all them places. But it's a cool little year. It's fun. There's some interesting awards. So what were you doing in 1983? And you were 3 years old, so not a whole lot of anything, eh?
I was this little guy.
Oh, look at that. You're a cute kid. Look at that. What happened?
That was me at 3 years old. I had not yet even known wrestling was a thing. If I had ever heard it, I probably got it confused with boxing, and I just thought it was a couple of guys fighting in a ring. But I didn't have any interest in it in 1983.
It's funny because I mentioned the Beast before. That's in your name. I was 5 years old, and around this time, I think I was into Grand Prix a bit. Okay. But in 84, 85 was when I first remember wrestling. So yeah, it's kind of not really into it in 83, but I have later on watched some of it, and some of it, that's pretty rough at this point, man. Snuka's good, but I love Backlund, but he's even getting pretty rough in 83. Snuka, Morocco's good. And the boys kicking ass. They're doing real good. Crockett's doing awesome in 83. Some of the best stuff. So let's hop into the first award. Rookie of the Year. Who goes first?
I'll guess your Rookie of the Year.
Let's pick it. And P.S. There's no music, by the way, because I wasn't doing all that. That was too much work. I was too busy watching that. Well, listen, half these guys don't have music, and I'm just not going through it. And it's a lot of process, man. I have to make fake accounts up to add them on. It's not easy. I'll sing the song. How's that sound?
Ladies and gentlemen, the effort by future Hall of Famer Scottie B here.
Yeah. Well, you got a magazine. I got to do a lot of shit, man. I format this goddamn thing. I don't see you sitting here formatting it.
All right. So my guess for Rookie of the Year for the Wrestling Observer Newsletter is Tiger Mask. Sorry, 83. I'm going to say...
I just showed it.
Masawa. I wasn't looking.
Road Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
Road Warriors are the Rookie of the Year, as voted on by the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, 1983. Runner-ups are Billy Jack Haynes with 17 votes. Road Warriors had 18 votes, by the way. And tied for third, Tonga Kid and Angelo Mosca Jr. I'll say Road Warriors kind of took that one. But go ahead with yours. I'm going to guess for yours. Bill, I'll just guess Billy Jack Haynes.
It is, in fact, Angelo Mosca Jr.
Didn't do much for him.
He wins Rookie of the Year with 12,817 votes. First runner-up.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll say 12,000 people didn't vote. 12 people didn't vote for him. 12,000 definitely didn't vote for him.
I don't know, man. Wrestling magazines were popular back.
That's true.
And it's not an outlandish number like we saw in main event where it was like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people were
trying to get them promotions up. Keep going.
First runner-up is King Kong Bundy with 11,064 votes. Second runner-up is Scott Armstrong with 8,150 votes. And third runner-up, Arn Anderson with 6,791 votes.
Oh, man.
And there were no honorable mentions.
Road Warriors get that one.
Easily.
Yeah, it's not a hard one there. All right, so let's hop right in. I'm going to grab here my little list. Most improved. Picking yours. I'm going to guess for you, Chris Adams.
Good guess. But it's Brett Wayne.
Who the hell is Brett Wayne?
That's the younger brother of Buzz Sawyer. He even got himself a color.
Well, look at him go, eh?
Picture here.
No plaque for him, but he got a color picture.
Yep. Most improved wrestler of the year, Brett Wayne, with 14,895 votes. First runner-up is Mike Rotundo with 14,014 votes. Second runner-up is Pez Watley with 10,732 votes. And third runner-up is Brad Reigns with 8,329 votes.
All right. You take your guess on mine.
E3. I'm going to say Don Kernoodle.
Kurt Hennig, a.k.a. Mr. Perfect. He wins most improved wrestler with 77 votes. Brett Sawyer, actually, is number 2 with 60 votes. Terry Allen, Ray Hernandez, a.k.a. Hercules Hernandez. Chris Adams, honorable mentions, Mike Rotundo, Tito Santana, Barry Windham. So I'm going to go with Hennig on that one also. So Observer goes 2 in a row.
I agree.
Yep. So then we have the next one coming up is everybody's favorite. Inspirational wrestler for you and most disgusting tactic for us. 1983, it's a fun one to try to guess. So you're up first.
I'm trying to think what was disgusting in 83. I'm going to say the Grand Wizard acknowledgement being very nothing.
Cue me here because I'm having issues here. Give me a quick cue. Okay, cue me again. I'm back now. I'm good. My thing just froze up. It's the Eddie Gilbert angle, the broken neck angle they use later for an angle with Mass Superstar giving him the neck breaker on the concrete. So I guess it's a big deal. They learn later. They do it all the time. Runner-up, Ole Anderson as his world champion is not as show and doesn't return admission, which is not even a big deal. And number 3, Joe Blanchard announced for a tournament to crown the real world champion. You know who won that tournament?
Adrian Adonis.
Exactly. And that's not that disgusting. That's not very disgusting. I'm going to guess for you, Inspirational, maybe Grand Wizard because he died.
No, it is, in fact, Hulk Hogan.
The Hulkster.
Hulkster wins Inspirational Wrestler of the Year with 13,815 votes. First runner-up is Roddy Piper with 12,974 votes. Second runner-up is Buzz Sawyer with 12,017 votes. And third runner-up is Playboy Buddy Rose with 8,719 votes.
All right. Good stuff. Next one. Hold on a second here. I fucked it up. All right, we're doing the next one. Most popular wrestler for you, babyface of the year for me. I'm picking most popular for you. I'm gonna go with Dusty. I find Dusty usually wins in there.
It is in fact Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Okay.
Most popular wrestler of the year.
He wasn't popular with the ladies.
Well, not with one in particular. 13,693.
Before you go any further, I have to cut you off. But how fucking nuts is that he wins that year after what he did?
Well, once we already did 07. You remember when Benoit won most popular wrestler of the year that year?
Did he win it that year?
No, I'm just being silly.
Oh, I don't remember. I keep thinking Benoit did that in 09, but it was 07 he did. That's my bad. But Snuka, everyone knows he killed that woman in October of that year after a TV taping. He was most popular rest of the year. Really fucking weird. Sorry, keep going. Go ahead.
First runner-up is Dusty Rhodes with 11,724 votes. Second runner-up is David Von Erich with 9,528 votes. And third runner-up is Junkyard Dog with 8,972 votes.
They're all dead. Every one of them. Crazy. All right, who's my most popular wrestler, aka best babyface?
I'm going to say Hulk Hogan.
It is, in fact, Hulk Hogan. He wins it. I'll go through the list here real quick while I close this out because this thing is a bag of shit. Fuck, man. My computer hates me. Might ask Santa for a new computer for Christmas. Hulk Hogan wins with 154 votes. Jimmy Superfly Snuka wins with 100. Goes second with 111. Tiger Mask, Kerry Von Erich, the boy Bob Backlund, Armor mentioned Junkyard Dog, Kevin Von Erich, Tommy Rich, and Jerry the King Lawler. And then, before we get into our halftime show, we are going to get Tag Team of the Year. So you can go ahead and guess mine.
I'm going to guess the Legion of Doom.
You are incorrect.
Oh, wow.
Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. Yeah. They win Tag Team of the Year. They got 169 votes. Road Warriors was second with 131. Stan Hansen and Bruiser Brody. Jack and Jerry Briscoe. Terry Gordy and Michael Hayes. And Sergeant Larry Cornelio is runner-up along with Steve Kern and Stan Lane.
That is a stacked lineup.
Yeah, it is. That's when tag teams were awesome, man. Excuse me. I'll pick Road Warriors for yours. You got the shirt on, so I'm gonna kind of give that away.
Yeah, it is indeed the Road Warriors.
Talk about guys getting up quick, man. Fuck, like that's fast. Eh?
Well, hell, they're the cover boys.
Yeah,
and they were on a lot of covers. They kind of took over from the Mil Mascaras, Andre the Giant era, and then it became Road Warriors Central. They win it with 12,397 votes. First runner-up is the Von Erichs with 11,294 votes. Second runner-up is the Freebirds with 11,046 votes. And third runner-up is the Briscoes with 9,252 votes.
I'll give the Road Warriors that one. I will, because they were pretty hot at that point. Oh, did we do best face too? I'll give Hogan the best face.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will agree.
All right, so let's jump into the halftime show. We always go through the sports, so let's go through sports real quickly. For the NFL 1983 draft, the Baltimore Colts selected John Elway first overall when he told them not to, and he stayed the hell away from that fucking crazy team because that owner was a psycho, and he ended up getting traded to Denver. I don't know what the trade was, but I think Elway was overrated personally. I don't think he was that good. I was not just I'm a Chiefs fan; he just wasn't that good. Made it to a few Super Bowls before he won one, got blown out in all of them, so. Was never a fan. And the AFC was garbage back then, dude. The NFC owned everything back then. And we'll get into that in a second. Best team in the NFL that year.
Was it the 49ers?
It was the Washington Commanders. They hold on a second here. Reload. They had a record of 14-2. So they were pretty dominant. Who's the worst teams with an S in the NFL that year?
Let's say Green Bay and Tampa Bay.
Got Tampa Bay right. Tampa Bay was one of the worst teams. and Houston was the worst team. They were both 2-14. So pretty shady that year. And then that year in the Super Bowl, the Raiders beat the Redskins 38-9. So they dominate them. MVP was Joe Theismann. Joe Gibbs from Washington was coach of the year. Offensive player of the year was Joe Theismann. Doug Betters was a defensive end from Miami, defensive player of the year. Eric Dickerson, who had a crazy rookie year, was rookie of the year. Vernon Maxwell was defensive rookie of the year. Never heard of him.
He used to play for the Rockets.
What's that?
He used to play for the Rockets.
For the Rockets?
Yeah, the Houston Rockets.
Oh, idiot.
No, Vernon Maxwell. Looked it up. He played.
Well, he played in the NFL. He was a rookie of the year.
I know, but there is a player named Vernon Maxwell.
Okay. Marcus Allen won Super Bowl MVP because he killed it in there. Okay, Major League Baseball best record.
I'm gonna say Cardinals.
The White Sox.
Look at that face. Jeez.
You want to see it again?
Yeah, I do. Holy wow.
There you go. Leave it right up there. The White Sox had a record of 99 wins and 63 losses. The worst team in the league.
Was it the Angels?
It was the Mariners. The Mariners had they were bad. 60 wins, 102 losses. Not as bad as later teams, but that was still bad. In the World Series, the Baltimore Orioles defeated the Philadelphia Phillies 4-1. Most valuable player that year was Cal Ripken Jr. for Baltimore for the American League. Dale Murphy for Atlanta, the National League. Cy Young, Lamar Hughes for Chicago. John Denny for Philly. Rookie of the Year, Ron Kittle for Chicago. Darryl Strawberry for the Mets. And Tony La Russa won Manager of the Year for the White Sox. And Tommy Lasorda won it for the Dodgers. The National Basketball Association, best team.
Was it the Lakers?
76ers. They had a record of 65 wins and 17 losses. The worst team.
Was it Houston?
It was Houston. 14 wins, 68 losses. The Philadelphia 76ers swept the Lakers in the finals 4-0. Most valuable player in the league was Moses Malone. I cannot talk. Philadelphia. Terry Cummings was Rookie of the Year for the San Diego Clippers. Defensive Player of the Year was Sidney Moncrief for Milwaukee. Sixth Man of the Year was Bobby Jones for Philadelphia. And Coach of the Year was Don Nelson for Milwaukee. Last but least, the National Hockey League. Best record.
Was it the New York Islanders?
It was your favorite team, the Boston Bruins. 50, what was the record here real quick? 50, 20, and 10. And the worst record.
Was it Pittsburgh?
It was Pittsburgh. Yeah. They got the record.
I remember who they got first overall the next year.
Yeah, it was some guy called Mario or something.
Do you know
what? Oh, they didn't get it until 80. When did they get Mario? 85?
84, 85. He and Patrick Roy were born on the same day in the same year, which is also my mom's birthday.
Okay. Worst record was them. 18 wins, 53 losses, and 9 ties. That's bad. Stanley Cup Finals, the New York Islanders defeated the Edmonton Oilers 4-0. And it's interesting because you know what happened the next year?
Edmonton won.
And I'm a big Kansas City guy. And I remember telling someone, when we lost to the Patriots, well, they lost to the Patriots. I don't play for them. I said it's like the Oilers and the Islanders. They'll come back next year and win, and they did. All right, top TV shows for that year. It's actually a little more interesting than the 2000s. They're actually fucking TV shows. Simon and Simon, number 5. The A-Team, which, you know, we all love the A-Team. Dynasty, 60 Minutes, and number 1 was...
Was it Dallas?
It was Dallas. Sorry, I'll let you guess the next one. Okay, so there's that. Top movies of the year. My freaking computer is so goddamn slow. This is ridiculous. Top movies of the year. Number 5, War Games. Number 4, a really good movie, Trading Places. Number 3, Flashdance. Number 2, Tootsie. And what is the number 1 movie in 1983? And do you want to guess that?
Is it Return of the Jedi?
It is Return of the Jedi, which I've never seen. I've never seen any Star Wars movies. Yeah, I'm not a Star Wars guy. What's that?
The first three, good storytelling.
I
The third one's the worst one of the original trilogy, but it's not bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. It's not my thing. I was more a Back to the Future guy. All right, so top albums for 1983. Eliminated by ZZ Top. She's So Unusable by Cyndi Lauper. Color by Numbers, Culture Club. Statistically, The Police. And the number one album of 1983 is, take a guess.
Was it Madonna?
No. Can't Slow Me Down, Lionel Richie. Huh. And let me tell you something with this. I can't pronounce the name of the concert. There's a big festival. It starts with a C. I worked with a guy who went to it. It's like a 3-day festival. It's a big deal. So they have all these bands, and Lionel Richie was on it.
Is it Coachella?
Coachella. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah. By the way, Prince has an incredible Radiohead cover on that fucking thing. It's amazing. But anyway, the guy goes to the concert. He comes back to work a couple days later, and we're talking. And I said, like, what was the highlight of the night? It's like fucking Lionel Richie, dude. I'm like, what? He's like, swear to God, dude. Lionel Richie came up, and he fucking tore the place apart. And I was pretty impressed. I'm like, he's like, dude, I never listened to Lionel Richie in my life. And the place, like, he came up, and people were like, oh, it's Lionel Richie. And then once he started going, the place went fucking crazy for him. I guess he just tore it up the whole fucking night, which is very cool. All right. The next thing, we got some VHS rentals.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought it'd be fun because you were saying that to do that before. So it's kind of a neat little thing. So number 5 rental that year is Poltergeist. Number 3 is Rocky 3. Number 4 is Rocky 3. Number 3 is The Road Warrior. Number 2 is Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan. And do you want to guess what the number 1 rental is? If you guess it, I'll be impressed.
Is it E.T.?
An Officer and the Gentleman.
Oh, wow.
And see, I like how, I got the little VHS thing, everything going there. So it's kind of fun. So yeah, that was kind of fun doing that. And I actually found a site that has top VHS rentals, which pisses me off now because I would like to find that back when we did the other stuff. But still, I think 83 was like the first year that VHS rentals got really big. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's jump into the main part of our halftime show. Top 100 Starcade matches. I got to reload my list here. So the way we do it is we go 100 to 90, and then we drop and say why 90 is that. Okay. So do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start.
Go ahead.
My number 100 is Vampiro versus Steve Dr. Death Williams. 99, Bret Hitman Hart versus Bill Goldberg. 98, Paul Jones versus Jimmy Valiant from 1984. 97, Sting versus the Black Scorpion. 96, Jimmy Valiant versus Paul Jones from 1986. 95, Manny Fernandez versus Black Bart. 94, Diamond Dallas Page versus the Giant. 93, Charlie Brown versus the Great Kabuki. 92, Steve Williams and Sting versus Jushin Liger and Eric Watts. 91, the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express and the Night of the Skywalkers. And my number 90 from Starcade 99 is 3 Count versus Young Dragons versus Evan Courageous and Jamie.
We're going to have a strange... Keep going.
So that's my first 10.
My first 10 are 100. J.J. Dillon versus Ron Bass. My bad. Black Bart's in J.J. Dillon's corner. That's from 85. Wahoo McDaniel versus Superstar Billy Graham. Steve Williams versus Barry Windham in 87. That was a fucking horrible match for what it should have been. Abdullah the Butcher versus Carlos Clones, 96. Kevin Nash versus Goldberg is 95. The Road Warriors versus the New Wild Samoans is 94. Sam Houston versus Bill Dundee is 93. Sting versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan from 1997 is 92. Paul Jones versus Jimmy Valiant from 1984 is number 91. And number 90, Manny Fernandez versus Abdullah the Butcher from 1985. Not that bad. Like, it's a bloodbath. That's pretty much it. But it's a bloodbath.
You ever hear Manny Fernandez, his shoot interview where he calls it one of the main events of Starcade 85? And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, people like to talk, and that's something he shouldn't do much of. Because, okay, hold on, I gotta move this. Go back to do your 89 to 90 or
sure.
89 to 80.
My 89 is Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton versus the Freebirds. Number 88, the Assassins versus Bugsy McGraw and Rufus R. Jones. 87, Buddy Landell versus Terry Taylor. 86, Ron Bass versus Dick Slater. 85, Abdullah the Butcher versus Carlos Colon. 84, Kevin Nash versus Bill Goldberg. 83, Rick Rude and Steve Austin versus Van Hammer and Big Josh. 82, Sam Houston versus Bill Dundee. 81, Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express in the scaffold match. And my number 80 is Crusher Khrushchev and Ivan Koloff versus the Kansas Jayhawks from Starcade 86. Kansas Jayhawks, of course, is Dutch Mantell and Hangman Bobby Jaggers. It was just kind of their match.
Well, that's why it's at 80.
Yeah, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was there.
All right, my number 89 is New Wild Samoans versus the Steiners from 89. 88, Big Van Vader, Mr. Hughes versus Rick Steiner and Night Stalker. 87, Nikita Koloff versus Terry Taylor. 86, Battle Bull, the Battle Royal, 91. 85, Sting and Dusty Rhodes versus the Road Warriors, 88. 1988, sorry. 84, Big Van Vader versus Dusty Rhodes versus Kazuki Sasaki and the Barbarian. 83, Wahoo McDaniel versus Rick Rude. 82, Kevin Sullivan and Steve Williams versus the Fantastics. 81, the Battle Bowl from 1992. And number 80, Sting beat Sting and Kazuki Sasaki in Starrcade 95. I don't know. It's the same kind of thing. It's just there, I guess.
Yep. My 79 is Marcus Bagwell and Jim Garvin versus Michael Hayes and Tracy Smothers. 78, Alex Wright versus Jean-Paul Levesque. 77, Johnny B. Bad versus Arn Anderson.
Hey, that should be your top three. Keep going.
Yeah. 76, Brad Armstrong versus Jim Garvin. 75, Michael Wallstreet versus Terry Taylor. 74, the Steiner Brothers versus Doom. 73, Sting and Abdullah the Butcher versus Bobby Eaton and Brian Pillman. 72, The Outsiders versus the Faces of Fear. 71, Lex Luger versus Sting. And my number 70 from Starrcade 89 Future Shock is the Steiners versus the Road Warriors. A dream match at the time.
Did it pan out? Because I don't remember much about it. That's my 79, actually.
It had a real screwy finish where I remember reading about it and not knowing who won. And then watching it and not remembering who won because they just kind of went on to the next thing really quick.
My 79 is that match. Steiners against Road Warriors from 89. 78, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew against Wahoo McDaniel and Billy Jerk Haynes from 85. 77, Diamond Dallas Page versus the Giant. 76, Dustin Rhodes, Richard Morton versus Larry Zbyszko and L.A. Gante. 75, Ron Simmons versus Steve Williams. 74, Buddy Landell versus Terry Taylor. 73, Pretty Wonderful versus Too Cold Scorpio and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. 72, Sting and Road Warrior Hawk versus the Nasty Boys from 1993. 71, Jet Jarrett versus Dustin Rhodes from 99. And 70, Rick Steiner versus Mike Rotunda. I mean, it's okay. Steiner turns face, whatever. It's a lot of these are just there, dude. I mean, I've seen all these. Do I remember them? No, I definitely don't. So a lot of them like, hey, let's go on paper. Go ahead.
Yeah, that Nasty Boys against Sting and Hawk match, that goes like 28 minutes, and it had no business going so damn long because...
Oh, that's why it's low, brother.
Yeah.
That Starrcade 93 is not really that great anyway. There's only like 2 good matches on it. Go ahead. Sorry.
My 69 is Rey Mysterio Sr. and Conan versus Norman Smiley and Chris Adams. 68, Jeff Jarrett versus Chris Benoit from 96. 67 is Ron Bass versus Black Bart. 66, Bobby Eaton versus Tom Zink. 65, Wahoo McDaniel versus Rick Rude. 64, Roddy Piper versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan. 63, Pretty Wonderful versus Too Cold Scorpio and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. 62, Sting and Dusty Rhodes versus the Road Warriors. 61, Perry Saturn versus Chris Benoit. And my number 60 is the Andersons versus Wahoo McDaniel and Billy Jack Haynes from Starrcade 85.
All right. 69, Sting versus Black Scorpion. 68, Ric Flair versus Lex Luger from 1989. 67, Lex Luger versus Sting from 1989. 66, Road Warriors versus Doom. 65, DDP versus Kurt Hennig for 97. 64, Bobby Eaton versus our boy, the Z-Man. 63, the Steiners versus Doom from 1989. Did I do that? No, that was real weird. It's not bad. 62, Lex Luger versus Great Muta from 1989. 61, Sting, Ric Flair from 1989. And 60, the Steiner Brothers versus the Great Muta, Mr. Saito from Starcade 90. Jump into your 50s.
My 59 is Big Van Vader versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan. 58, Lex Luger versus The Giant. 57, Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair from 84. 56, Chris Benoit versus Jeff Jarrett from 99. 55, Kevin Sullivan and Steve Williams versus The Fantastics. 54, Billy Kidman versus Juventud Guerrera versus Rey Mysterio Jr. 53, Manny Fernandez versus Abdullah the Butcher. 52, Lex Luger versus Ric Flair from 89. 51, Eddie Guerrero versus Diamond Dallas Page. And my number 50 is Tex Schlesinger and Shanghai Pierce versus Max Payne and Cactus Jack. I don't mind Starcade 93's undercard because I really loved WCW during that time frame. So seeing these matches with these wrestlers, it was a treat. And I didn't see it at the time, and I didn't even see it shortly thereafter. I saw it when I started tape trading.
59, Steve Williams and Sting versus Justin Liger and Eric Watts. Rick Rude versus The Boss, 58. 57, Lex Luger versus Stan Hansen. 56, Bob Orton Jr. and Dick Slater versus Mark Youngblood and Wahoo McDaniel for 1983. 55, Conan versus Chris Jericho for 98. 54, Sting versus the Great Muta. 53, Alex Wright versus John Pierre Levesque. I heard what that guy went on to do something, that other guy, I don't know, whatever. 52 is close to yours. Cactus Jack and Max Payne against Tex Schlesinger and Shanghai Pierce. 51, Tommy Rich, Ricky Morton versus the Fabulous Freebirds. And 50, Arn Anderson, Lex Luger versus Terrence Taylor and the Z-Man from Starcade 91. Good workers in that. I mean, it's actually all pretty decent workers at that point. So it's not bad. But Starcade 91 was a little fucky. Go ahead to your 40s.
It is. My 49 is Jimmy Valiant and Miss Atlanta Lively versus the Midnight Express.
Oh, 48. No, that was dog shit. What are you doing watching that? That didn't even make my list. Go ahead.
48, Big Van Vader and Mr. Hughes versus Rick Steiner and the Night Stalker. 47, Sting versus Ric Flair from 89. 46, Bob Orton and Dick Slater versus Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood. 45, the Koloffs versus Ole Anderson and Keith Larson. 44, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson versus the Road Warriors. 43, Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko. 42, Sting versus the Great Muta. 41, Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair from 85. And my number 40 from Starcade 96 is Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Jushin Thunder Liger.
Good match. Good match. My 49, Vader versus Jim Duggan from 94. 48, Great Muta, Barry Windham versus Brian Pillman and Too Cold Scorpio. 47, Akira Hakoto versus Medusa from 96. 46, Doom versus Arn Anderson and Barry Windham. Excuse me. 45, the Rock and Roll Express versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff. 44, Barry Windham versus Bam Bam Bigelow. 43, The Outsiders versus Faces of Fear. 42, Big Bubba Rogers versus Ronnie Garvin. 41, Ric Flair versus Ronnie Garvin. And then number 40, 3 Count versus Young Dragons versus Evan Craze and Jamie Noble. I like that match, man. 2000 fucking sucks, but that's their only shining spot is them matches.
Well, that's from 99.
Did I screw up the year? Well, 99, 2000 blend together with WCW. It's the whole year's shit except for that. So I fucked up the year. All right, go ahead to your 30s.
My 39 is The Boss versus Rick Rude. 38, Ron Simmons versus Steve Williams. 37, the Steiners versus Great Muta and Masa Saito. 36, Jushin Liger versus Chris Benoit. 35, Eddie Gilbert and Larry Zbyszko and Rick Steiner versus Sting, Jim Garvin, and Michael Hayes. 34, Big Van Vader and Dustin Rhodes versus Barbarian and Kensuke Sasaki. 33, Koji Kanemoto versus Alex Wright. 32, Billy Kidman versus Eddie Guerrero. 31, Nikita Koloff versus Terry Taylor. And my number 30 from Starcade 89, because it was such a novel match on paper and concept with the heels versus heels, it was Lex Luger versus Great Muta.
Okay. Number 39 for me, Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair from Starrcade 85. Number 38, Dusty Rhodes versus Lex Luger from 87. 37, Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes from 1984. 36, Keiji Muto versus Alex Wright from 95. Was that your 36?
It was my 33.
Okay. 35, Piper versus Hogan. I know it's high, but I like that match, man. The hype's awesome for it.
Yeah, but the fact that they didn't announce that it was a non-title match.
I know. That was kind of bullshit.
That's big-time bullshit.
The 34, Jeff Jarrett versus Chris Benoit from 96. 33, Steve Austin, Rick Rude versus Van Hammer and Big Josh. 32, Ric Flair versus Nikita Koloff. 31, Lord Steven Regal versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And number 30, Perry Saturn versus Chris Benoit from 1997 because they beat the living piss out of each other. I liked, Benoit, even though he was losing a lot, he was having kick-ass matches them years.
Oh, yeah.
Go to your 20s.
My 29 is Ric Flair versus Nikita Koloff. 28 is Ric Flair versus Lex Luger versus Sting. 27 is Harley Race versus Ric Flair. 26 is Great Muta and Barry Windham versus Too Cold Scorpio and Brian Pillman. 25 is Big Bubba Rogers versus Ronnie Garvin. 24 is Dusty Rhodes versus Lex Luger. 23 is Tully Blanchard versus Dusty Rhodes. 22 is Tom Zink and Terry Taylor versus Arn Anderson and Lex Luger. 21 is Stan Hansen versus Lex Luger. And my number 20, the main event of Starcade 95, Ric Flair versus the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Yeah, that's a kick-ass match. Flair blades like a fucking... He sounds like he's... What's that?
He cut an artery that night.
Oh, man. He's flopping all over the fucking place at the end of that match. My number 29 is Sting and Abdullah the Butcher versus Brian Pillman and Bobby Eaton. I like the finish. The finish is all wacky with Cactus. That's the only thing good about 91. Starcade. Eddie Guerrero versus Diamond Dallas Page from 96. Tully Blanchard versus Dusty Rhodes from 86. Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard versus Road Warriors. Shane Douglas, Ricky Steamboat versus... I'm on 25 now. Shane Douglas, Ricky Steamboat versus Barry Windham and Brian Pillman from 92. Ric Flair versus Lex Luger from 88. Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express from 87. 22, is Billy Kidman versus Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrero from 98. 21 is Ric Flair versus Lex Luger versus Sting from 95. And 20, Chris Benoit and Jeff Jarrett in a ladder match from 1999. I do remember that match. Very, very good. Again, same as 2000. Pretty much. There's a few good matches on that card, but nothing to really write home about. Go ahead to your teens.
My 19 is Ric Flair versus Lex Luger from 88. Number 18 is Midnight Express versus Midnight Express. Number 17, Rock and Roll Express versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff. 16, Dean Malenko versus Ultimo Dragon. 15, Shinjiro Otani versus Eddie Guerrero. 14, Doom versus Barry Windham and Arn Anderson. 13, Ricky Steamboat versus Tully Blanchard. 12, Rick Steiner versus Mike Rotunda. 11, Ricky Steamboat versus Lord Steven Regal. And my number 10, the main event of Starcade 87, Ronnie Garvin versus Ric Flair. And it's one of those matches where if you have a poor quality version, you don't truly appreciate the sound of the chops.
Oh, yeah. I remember the chops were fucking crazy. Beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
God bless Ronnie Garvin, man. He'll take it. He did the same thing with Valentine. Number 19, Johnny B. Bad versus Arn Anderson. Number 18, Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Number 17, Road Warriors versus Midnight Express in 1986. Number 16, Billy Kidman versus Eddie Guerrero. Number 15, the Rock and Roll Express versus the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Number 14, the Midnight Express versus the original Midnight Express. Number 13 is the same as yours, Tully Blanchard versus Ricky Steamboat. Number 12, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood versus the Briscoes from 83. Number 11, Eddie Guerrero versus Dean Malenko from 1997. And number 10, Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard, I Quit Steel Cage match. And yeah, that's really, I love that. AEW gets their heat, but at least they go back to the way it should be. That's an I Quit match. Hardcore. He's going to kill him. That's the way I Quit matches should be. Not fucking WWE where, I don't know, you put a guy in a fucking rest hold and he quits. So, but very good match. Very good. Go ahead with your top 9.
Yeah, so my number 9 is the Briscoes versus Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. Number 8, Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes. Number 7, Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas versus Brian Pillman and Barry Windham. Number 6, Barry Windham versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Number 5, Ric Flair versus Big Van Vader. Number 4, the Andersons versus the Rock and Roll Express. Number 3, Big Van Vader versus Sting. Number 2, Roddy Piper versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. And my number 1.
You're picking Flair and Vader?
No, that was my number 5.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
My number 1, my all-time favorite Starcade match is Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard in an I-Quit match.
It's a good match.
Really good match.
All right, so mine is number 9, Sting versus Big Van Vader from 92. Otani versus Eddie Guerrero from 95. Ric Flair versus Randy Savage from 95. Juice and Liger versus Chris Benoit from 95. So 95 is a pretty fucking good show. Number 4, Juice and Liger versus Rey Mysterio from 96. Number 3, Ric Flair versus Big Van Vader from 93. Number 2, Ultimo Dragon versus Dean Malenko from 96. And you can guess my number 1, but you pretty much know what it is.
Is it Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine?
It is. And it is a goddamn good match, brother. I love it. And I'll tell you, this number 2 is, it's funny when I did it. Because like you probably thought I was going to put Vader and Flair too.
I did.
I love Ultimo and Dean Malenko from that. That's why I love that match. I remember I had recorded that, and I rewatched that match a ton.
And what you'll find when we make these lists, it's the stuff that you've seen multiple times at certain points in your life that will just have a greater impact. There's some matches that may be good, but if you saw them when you were talking to somebody else, you had all these other distractions going on, it's not going to have the same impact as ones that you watch multiple times. So you have different periods of your life where, teenage Scott saw this, or Scott in his mid-20s saw this, or Scott in his 30s saw this.
Scott in his 65, mid-60s.
And also stuff that's released on different DVD or Blu-ray sets or VHS sets. That stuff gets into your mind, and when you're doing these types of lists, they're going to fare much better than matches you saw one time.
All right, let's jump back into the awards. So I think I went last. Did I not go last? Well, we'll have to figure it out. Manager of the year. Guess my manager of the year.
83. I'm going to say Bobby Heenan.
The Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And I just watched that I watched that Territories thing about Kaufman. Not bad. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. Jimmy Hart was with 34 votes. Number 2 is Lou Albano. Number 3 is Bobby Heenan. Honorable mentions, J.J. Dillon and the late Grand Wizard. Your manager of the year, I'm going to go with Lou Albano.
It is actually J.J. Dillon. He wins manager of the year with 11,037 votes. First runner-up is Sheikh Adnan Al-Casey with 10,641 votes. Second runner-up is Captain Lou Albano with 10,319 votes.
You mean third runner-up? Oh, sorry, second runner. Keep going.
Third runner-up is Precious Paul Ellering with 10,172 votes.
By the way, did we get our tag team picked? Like who picked what?
Yeah, I think we both picked the Warriors.
Okay. All right, so I'll go with that. I'm going to go with Jimmy Hart.
Yeah,
he's doing pretty good in Memphis. All right, most hated wrestler of the year. This goes for you first. I'm going to go with Ric Flair. No, Rick was a face. Never mind. Hold on a second. Jesus. Look at my list to see if I can pick one. Get a hint. I'm going to go with Don Morocco.
It's actually the Hammer.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Valentine. He wins most hated wrestler of the year with 12,986 votes. First runner-up is Masked Superstar with 158 votes. Second runner-up is Kevin Sullivan with 9,785 votes. And third runner-up is Michael Hayes with 9,264 votes.
All right, guess mine.
Is it the Fabulous Freebirds?
One of them. It's Michael Hayes. Yeah. Michael Hayes wins it with 142 votes. Sergeant Slaughter is second with 122. Don Morocco's third with 66. Buzz Sawyer, Butch Reed, Ric Flair, Ted DiBiase, and Abdullah the Butcher. Now, the next one for you is the PWI Insider Award. Is that the one? What's the one you have there? Editor Award, sorry. That's your next one. Mine's most under. Oh, by the way, best heel. Who are we picking? I'm going with God damn, I forgot who your fucking most hated wrestler is.
Valentine.
Valentine, going Valentine.
Valentine. And who was yours?
Michael Hayes.
I'm gonna go Hayes.
He was pretty good world class, but Valentine had a good run in Crockett.
Yeah. Oh, it's the reason I'm going with Hayes is because Valentine was in the U.S. title division, so he was upper. Like he was a main event talent, but it was upper mid card. Whereas the Freebirds on Eric feud that drew the house.
All right, so PWI award you got there. What do you got going on? What is it? Like, break it down for everybody what it is.
PWI Editors Award. It's an award they give. There's no runners up. Sometimes it's seemingly random who gets it.
I don't know who this one be. I'm gonna go with Grand Wizard because he died.
Grand Wizard is the winner.
Loved Grand Wizard, man. Loved the Grand Wizard. I think he was severely underrated. Awesome guy. I know you weren't a fan because he didn't bump. But I thought he was great on the mic. Go ahead. That's it. That's all.
He was only 58 when he died.
I know. Yeah, he was young.
Crazy.
All right, most underrated wrestler.
83. I'm gonna say Buddy Rose.
No, it's Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid gets the most underrated wrestler. Now Scott McGee was second. Masa Saito was third. Tito Santana, Don Canolia, Ricky Chosu. That's it. So match of the year. I couldn't get my match of the year because I couldn't find it. But I know my match of the year. I've watched it. Guess what it is?
Is it a Dynamite versus Tiger Mask match?
Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood versus Sergeant Slaughter and Don Cornelio. And that is a killer fucking match. If anyone can find that, you watch that match. It's really fucking good. It definitely deserves match of the year. I'll tell you that right now because it's really goddamn good. It's long, but it's good. Runner-ups, Harley Race versus Ric Flair at Starcade. Tiger Mask versus Dynamite Kid. Antonio Inoki versus Hulk Hogan. The Funks versus Stan Hansen and Terry Gordy. Von Ayers versus the Freebirds. Ric Flair versus Kerry Von Erich from Christmas in Dallas. Don Morocco versus Jimmy Snuka from Landover, not the MSG match. That's interesting. Kerry Von Erich versus Michael Hayes in the cage. And number 10, Piper and Valentine. Dog collar match. So they weren't fans of that. I'm going to guess for you, Ric Flair and Harley Race.
You're correct. Ric Flair and Harley Race wins it with 22,817 votes. First runner-up is Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood versus Sergeant Slaughter and Don Kernodle. Second runner-up is Don Morocco versus Pedro Morales. Third runner-up is Tommy Rich versus Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
Man, that Piper Valentine match didn't get any love.
Well, to be fair, it happened in November.
Yeah. Well, so did Flair. So the same card as Flair and Race?
No, because the Flair and Race one that won was when Race won the title from Flair.
Okay. Yeah.
And I looked for it on YouTube, and there's only like a 2-minute clip from St. Louis.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with the tag match.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. And last but least, let's go with Wrestler of the Year. And I'll pick yours. I'm going to go with Flair.
It's actually the greatest wrestler on God's green earth. It is, in fact, Mr. Harley Race.
Okay.
He wins it with 19,921 votes. First runner-up is Nick Bockwinkel with 9,405 votes. Second runner-up is Andre the Giant with 8,492 votes.
You know, it's a Kayfabe magazine win. Keep going.
Third runner-up is Bob Backlund with 7,177 votes. On 83.
So guess mine.
Is it the Nature Boy?
It is the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. He wins it with 252 votes. Runner-up is Hulk Hogan at 147. Tiger Mask, Harley Race, Jimmy Snuka, honorable mention, Bruiser Brody. I'm going to go with PWI on that. I'm going to give it to Race.
And I'm going to go with Observer.
I don't know. Race had his last good year in '83.
Yeah, he did, but Flair going babyface was, and I mean, Starcade was built around him.
Oh yeah, and he had a good run. I mean, I remember Valance was it Slater and Orton with the baseball bat.
Yeah. The thing is, Flair's '83 is kind of underwhelming compared to other years of his. The '82, he had a great year. '84, he had, great year, especially in other territories. Not so much in Mid-Atlantic, but yeah, '83 kind of an off year. But I still give it to him over Race because honestly, I'm very underwhelmed with a lot of the Harley Race matches I've seen. He has a reputation of a very tough individual, but he doesn't portray that in his matches. He does a lot of big theatrical bumps, and when he goes in the mat, he doesn't have very interesting mat work. I find he'll just rest in a hold for a while.
He's hanging out, man. He smoked a lot. Leave him alone. Sure. All right. So you got any other awards for me? Anything at all, or just pretty much nothing?
I don't, but I do have wrestling personalities who were born.
Yeah, I figured you were going to do that. Go ahead.
1983. We've got Kenny Omega, Alex Shelley, Matt Menard, Kushida, Leva Bates, Luke Gallows, Brandy Rhodes, Braun.
Right back. Keep going.
Smart Mark Sterling, Chasen Rance, Chris Masters, Mike Mondo, Nikki Bella,
You look like you're having trouble?
Well, no, I'm just scrolling through the list. I'm only picking ones. I'm not going to say everybody. I'm just going with the bigger names. Darren Young, Drake Maverick, Eddie Edwards, Roderick Strong, Rosemary, Heath Slater, Brie Bella. So not just Nikki Bella, but also her twin were also born.
I like how they don't mention the other one.
Well, it's this alphabetical order by the first name.
Okay.
Willow, and that's it.
All right. So my secondary awards. First one, feud of the year.
I'm going to say Von Erichs versus Freebirds.
You are correct. Morocco and Soko second. Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer's third. Best wrestling move.
Is it the Superfly Splash?
It is. Number 2 is the Tiger Mask leap out of the ring. And number 3 is Super Destroyer's Superplex, Bob Orton Superplex, or Power Slam off the top rope. Most impressive wrestler.
Tiger Mask?
Dynamite Kid. Tiger Mask is second. Ric Flair's third. Fourth is Adonis. Fifth is Hogan. Most washed up wrestler.
83. Was it Ox Baker?
Chief J. Strongbro.
Yeah, he was.
Billy Graham was second. Mr. Wrestling 2. Sweet Hansen, Butcher Vachon. Honorable mentions. Giant Baba, Bob Backlund, Dick the Bruiser, Harley Race, and Don Morongo. So that sounds wrong. Most obnoxious.
Was it Jimmy Hart?
Vince McMahon, Ole Anderson, Tommy Rich, Gorilla Monsoon, Bob Backlund, Gordon Soley, David Crockett. Best brawler.
Bruiser Brody.
Exactly. Stan Hansen, Buzz Sawyer, Terry Gordy, Sergeant Slaughter, our mentioned Roddy Piper. Best technical wrestler.
Dynamite Kid.
Tiger Mask. Chavo Guerrero's second. Dynamite Kid, Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton, Fujinami, and Ricky Chosu. Most agile wrestler. Best flying wrestler. That's the same thing.
Tiger Mask.
Tiger Mask, yeah. Dynamite Kid second. Chavo Guerrero, Jimmy Snuka. That's that. And strongest wrestler.
83. Road Warrior Animal.
No, not yet. No, it's Hogan. Hogan, Butch Reed, Ken Patera, Tony Atlas, Andre the Giant, Bruiser Brody, and Nikolai Volkov. Best on interviews.
Is Roddy Piper?
Roddy Piper. Number 2 is Ric Flair, Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan, Michael Hayes. Honorable mentions Jerry Lawler, Don Morocco, Nick Bockwinkel, Dusty Rhodes, and Jesse Ventura. Most charismatic.
Hulk Hogan?
Ric Flair. Hulk Hogan's number 2. Tiger Mask, Michael Hayes, Jimmy Snuka. Honorable mentions Roddy Piper, Kerry Von Erich, Junkyard Dog, and the Fabulous Ones. Most overrated.
Is it Dusty Rhodes?
It's a disgusting name is what it is. It's horrible, and I'm never going to read it ever again.
It's Bob Backlund, right?
They give Bob Backlund, the greatest wrestler of all time, by the way, of all time. Bobby Backlund's number 1. Dusty Rhodes, Tommy Rich, Jimmy Snuka, Mr. Wrestling 2, John Studd, Giant Baba, Junkyard Dog. Most likely to make it big in 1984.
It's an interesting award. Is it Brett Wayne Sawyer?
Mike Von Erich. Number 2, the Cobra, Tim Horner, Terry Allen, who became big later, and Tommy Rogers. The best circuit / promotion.
World Class?
Mid-Atlantic. New Japan's 2nd, World Class is 3rd, WWF is 4th, and CWA Memphis is 5th. Best television show.
World Class?
New Japan Pro Wrestling. World Class is 2nd, Mid-South, and then Memphis and WWF's 3rd. Match of the year we already did. I think we might have done everything. Nope. I just missed it. Okay. Hardest worker.
Dynamite Kid?
Yeah. Ric Flair's 2nd, Tiger Mask is 3rd. Biggest shock of the year.
Was it Wizard dying?
No, it must have been before this, I would hope, because Ric Flair losing the NWA title to Harley Race. Number 2, Tiger Mask resigns. 3, Inoki and Hogan. Tiger Mask, that's when Hogan knocked Inoki out. And that's that. Best television announcer.
Is Gordon Lance Russell?
It's Gordon Soley. Runner-up is Bill Watts, Lance Russell, and Bill Mercer. And last but least, best 3-man tag team.
It's the Fabulous Freebirds?
Yeah, well, I think they just made that award for them, for fuck's sakes. That, and then number 2 is Masa Saito and Ricky Chozu and Killer Khan. And number 3 is the Von Erichs. So that award was made for the Freebirds. They only had it 1 year.
They should have kept that award, especially with the Lucha influence. They could have.
No, well, they were so like back then. They were hardcore fucking geeks. Like just like we know more about wrestling than you do. We know it's not real, and I'll tell you, I'll tell you stuff that you don't want to know. Like fuck that, man. The Observer was a dicks back then.
Well, that said, Scott, looking at the tally here, you have it 5-3 for the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and I have it 7-1 for Wrestling Observer News.
So 7-1. Wow. I mean, the Observer's still annoying, but looking back on it, they definitely got a lot of things right. So, but that was 1983, everybody. So don't forget again to subscribe, hit the like button. We got that contest coming up for the 100 subscriber, 3 months free of YouTube Premium. And we'll be back again with another episode of Newsstand versus Newsletter.
And
beautiful plaque. Okay, the first one is Billy Jack. Billy Jack was voted by all you fans all over the world as the most improved wrestler of the year, and I'd like to give him the plaque right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the man who received over 12,000 votes. 12,000 votes as the most popular wrestler of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the plaque, and now here's the man who won it by your choice, the former World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion.